At Christmas, my sister gifted me a book called How to Be Less Cheap. Everyone thought it was hilarious. I smiled, said thanks, and opened her envelope. Inside was a loan application I was supposed to co-sign. I tore it in half. Her face dropped instantly. Christmas at my parents' place had always been messy in its own way, but this year, Alyssa turned it into something else entirely. She walked in late as usual, loud and overconfident, wearing that ridiculous faux fur coat she probably couldn't afford, dragging a Gucci bag I knew for a fact was secondhand because I saw the same one on Facebook Marketplace the week before. She kissed everyone on the cheek like she was visiting from Paris instead of crashing in her ex's apartment in Glendale. We all gathered around the tree, doing the usual half-hearted small talk, pretending to enjoy each other's company. Alyssa had clearly planned something. She kept eyeing me like she couldn't wait to get to her moment. Finally, she handed me a box wrapped in shiny gold paper and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I got you something you really need this year." I already knew it wasn't going to be thoughtful. I opened it slowly, more out of caution than curiosity. Inside was a book with a bright yellow cover and huge block letters. How to Be Less Cheap. Pause. Then everyone laughed hard. My dad actually clapped his hand on the couch. My cousins snorted. Even my Uncle Steve, who barely talks, shook his head like it was the joke of the year. I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because I've learned to survive by staying quiet when she pulls this kind of crap. Alyssa has always needed a villain in her little dramas, and I used to let myself play the role just to avoid the fallout. But this time felt different. "Don't forget the envelope," she added, grinning like a child who just dropped a frog in your lap. I opened the envelope, pulled out a tri-folded document. First I thought it was a check. Then I realized it was a loan application. Her name already typed in, her information filled out, and a pink sticky note pointing to the bottom where it said co-signer. Underlined. I looked at it, then looked at her. He was still grinning, so I tore it straight down the middle. No words. Just a clean, slow rip. And I dropped the pieces on her lap like it was wrapping paper. Silence. My mom stopped pouring cider. My cousin stopped chewing. My dad actually stood up. "Jesus, Rachel," he said like I was the one who ruined Christmas. Alyssa's face twisted, confused and furious, like she couldn't decide which mask to wear next. Victim or aggressor? I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of wine. My hand didn't shake. Alyssa followed. She waited until no one could hear and said I was being dramatic, selfish, that she needed the loan to move out of LA and start over. She said, "You know, I always planned to pay you back. I just thought since you don't have kids, you'd actually be useful for once." I didn't say anything back, but my mom did. She'd been standing behind the fridge door. She stepped in and said, "Rachel doesn't owe you a cent. And maybe next year, you should focus on getting your life together instead of humiliating your sister." Alyssa blinked like she got hit with cold water. And then she left. Quietly. No big goodbye. No hugs. Just coat keys door. We all pretended like Christmas wasn't ruined. We ate pie and made small talk and opened the rest of the gifts like the room wasn't full of smoke. My dad tried to explain it away. "She's under pressure. She's just emotional. She didn't mean anything by it." But I knew better. This wasn't about a loan. This was about Alyssa pushing, assuming I'd bend like always. But this time I didn't. And that's when everything began to shift. 2 days after Christmas, my dad texted me. "Alyssa says you humiliated her. Just apologize and make peace. Not ask if I was okay. Not what happened. Just apologize." I stared at the screen, then replied, "She gave me a loan application wrapped as a gift." No. He didn't respond. I figured that was the end of it, until the calls started. 3 different banks in 4 days. All asking if I was aware I'd been listed as a reference. One even asked for income verification. I demanded to know who submitted the application. They said, "Alyssa Monroe." She'd used my information. Without asking. Without telling me. I immediately filed a fraud alert and froze my credit. Texted her once. "Don't ever use my name again." No reply. Not even a half-assed denial. Instead she went public. 3 days later she posted a picture of her and my dad on Instagram, cropped to make it look like they were having this perfect father-daughter Christmas. Caption: "Some people forget the meaning of family. Glad I still have mine." And the comments were exactly what she wanted. Her friends, old roommates, even some mutual acquaintances I hadn't talked to in years, all chiming in. "You're the strong one. Haters gonna hate. Keep shining." I knew it was bait. I didn't bite. But it got worse. She moved in with my mom the next week, supposedly, for a few days, until she figured out her living situation. That turned into unpacking her trash bags into the guest room, dumping beauty products across the bathroom counter, and leaving empty Starbucks cups on every flat surface. She slept in until noon. Played TikToks on full volume like she was living alone. Told my mom she was in between opportunities, and that she wasn't built for mediocrity. My mom called me 5 days in. She sounded completely drained. She doesn't lift a finger. She stays up all night and calls it brainstorming. She said she's working on a pitch deck. I asked for what and she just walked away. I told her the truth. This was Alyssa. This was always Alyssa. You either set a boundary or you get steamrolled. Meanwhile, my dad kept pushing. Called me again to say I was being cold. That I was punishing Alyssa for asking for help. That if I just co-signed, none of this would have happened. I reminded him. Car repairs, emergency rent, credit card bailouts. Thousands over the last 5 years. When did she ever pay any of it back? I asked. He didn't have an answer. Then Alyssa made her next move. She messaged my ex. The one who cheated on me with her old roommate, the one I hadn't spoken to in over a year. She told him I was not doing well, that I'd isolated myself, and that maybe he should check in on me. He sent me the screenshots. She wasn't even subtle. She wanted to make me look unstable, probably hoping it would circle back to me and rattle me into silence. It backfired. I blocked her everywhere. Phone, socials, even email. My mom begged me not to, said it would only make things worse. I told her it wasn't my job to make things easier anymore. Eventually, even my mom had enough. She gave Alyssa a quiet ultimatum: get a job or move out. Alyssa responded the only way she knows how. She posted another picture, this time from my mom's kitchen, holding a glass of wine she didn't buy, with the caption, "Some people only love you when you need nothing from them. Watch how fast they turn when you stop playing weak." She's unraveling. But she still thinks she's the victim. Still thinks she can outmanipulate her way through. He's wrong. It started with the fake job interview. My mom had finally snapped after 2 weeks of Alyssa sleeping in, doing nothing and blasting her phone like she was auditioning for a reality show. She called a friend who worked at a small accounting firm in Pasadena and got Alyssa an interview for a front desk assistant job. Not glamorous but steady. Perfect for someone supposedly trying to rebuild. Alyssa acted grateful. She even pretended to polish up a resume that looked like it had been made in Canva by someone drunk. She left that morning in heels and a blazer like she was headed to brunch, and came back 3 hours later with a shopping bag and a half-eaten pretzel. When my mom asked how it went, Alyssa just said, "Oh, I canceled. It felt off. The energy wasn't right." Then she locked herself in the guest room and posted a selfie with the caption, "Protect your peace even if they call it laziness." That night, my mom locked up her wine cabinet and hid her purse. The next day my dad called me again. This time to say, "I'm giving Alyssa a little help. You've made your point, but I won't watch her fall apart." He didn't ask me how I was. Just told me what he was going to do and hung up before I could respond. I didn't care about the money. I cared about the fact that everyone kept throwing lifelines to the person who lit the boat on fire. But Alyssa wasn't done. A week later, I got an email from my company's HR department. Someone had anonymously accused me of freelancing for a competitor and using company systems to do it. They attached screenshots of files that were real, old mock-ups from a logistics redesign project I'd done the year before. Stuff I had shared with Alyssa when she said she wanted to learn about UX and pivot into tech. She saved them, waited, then weaponized them. I had to spend the next 48 hours walking HR through timestamps, Slack messages, and archived project folders to prove everything was mine and no, I wasn't moonlighting. They believed me, eventually, but told me to be more cautious about who I share company content with in the future. That was the moment it hit me. Alyssa wasn't spiraling. She was retaliating. I texted her once, "You really want to start this war? Fine." She didn't answer, but I knew she saw it. The same week, 2 of my friends reached out saying they'd gotten weird DMs from Alyssa. One said she was worried about me, that I'd become paranoid, and was cutting everyone off. Another one got a message saying I wasn't myself, and maybe they should check in for safety. She was setting up a narrative, making me look unstable, isolated. Like everything she was doing was out of concern, not spite. I started locking everything down. Passwords, 2-factor social media. I deleted old DMs, removed shared access from old Google Drives. Alyssa had always been careless, but this wasn't careless anymore. This was calculated. Meanwhile, my mom was at her limit. I knew the call was coming. When she finally rang, she didn't even try to hide the defeat in her voice. She took my credit card and ordered DoorDash 3 times in one day. One of them was just bubble tea. I asked her to start helping with groceries and she told me to respect her healing process. I told my mom to kick her out. Not to threaten it, to actually do it. And she did. Quietly. She packed Alyssa's clothes, makeup bags, 2 ring lights, and a stack of untouched self-help books into 3 contractor bags and put them in the garage. Then she told her to leave. Alyssa didn't leave quietly. She cried, screamed, called my mom abusive, filmed herself on her phone saying she was being discarded like trash by the woman who raised her. Then she called our dad. First he came, picked her up and drove off without saying a word to my mom. That night, Alyssa posted a story from the passenger seat, face half-lit, captioned, "Sometimes all you have is yourself. And sometimes that's still too much for them." Then nothing. For a week. Then no calls. No texts. Not even passive-aggressive posts. I thought maybe it was over. Until she texted me, "Congratulations. You got what you wanted." No punctuation. No emotion. Just venom. I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. Because she still didn't get it. I didn't want her to lose. I just didn't want her taking me down with her. It was almost eerie how quiet everything got. 3 weeks. Not a text. Not a subtweet. Not even one of her cryptic Instagram quotes about cutting off fake energy. It felt like the calm before something awful, and I kept telling myself to enjoy it while it lasted. But deep down I knew Alyssa wasn't done. She never stops unless she's out of options, or planning something bigger. Turns out she was planning. It started with my cousin Morgan's wedding. Morgan's one of those people who tries really hard to keep the peace. She'd invited both me and Alyssa months ago, back when things were only mildly toxic, not full-scale disaster. I never RSVP'd, didn't even open the invitation, to be honest. After everything, I didn't feel like being in a room full of people pretending we were one big happy family. I didn't want to smile through another conversation where someone asked, "So are you and your sister talking again?" 3 days before the wedding, I got a text from Morgan. "Can't wait to see you this weekend. So happy you two are back on good terms." I stared at it, confused. Then the other text started. Liv, our other cousin, sent me a screen recording of Alyssa's Instagram story. In it, Alyssa had posted a fake iMessage conversation. She'd literally crafted an entire text thread where I supposedly apologized, said I missed her, said I wanted to make peace at the wedding. She even added herself responding, saying she forgave me, and that healing is a journey. Looked real. She used my old contact name, even my punctuation style. People believed it. Morgan believed it. That's why she thought I was coming. That's why everyone suddenly thought we were working it out. I had to call Morgan and explain everything. To her credit, she handled it well. She was embarrassed, a little shaken, and just kept saying, "I don't get it. Why would she do that? Because she needs to win. Even if she has to fake the scoreboard." I told her I wouldn't be coming. He understood. But Alyssa went. Of course she went. She showed up late, made an entrance, and wore white. Not a hint of cream or beige. Stark, blinding, rhinestone-studded white. Full length with a slit that nearly hit her hip. She swept into the ceremony like she was the bride, hugging people she hadn't spoken to in years, grabbing Morgan for a photo and posting it with the caption, "When forgiveness leads, families heal. Proud to stand by you today." Morgan looked visibly uncomfortable in the picture. She texted me later that night and said, "She pulled me aside and told me you were just going through a lot and didn't want to ruin your progress." It was sick. She was creating her own version of reality and selling it like gospel. But she wasn't done. 2 days later, I got a DM from someone I hadn't spoken to since my first job out of college. He sent me a screenshot. Alyssa had emailed her, claiming she was gathering testimonials for a legal matter involving me, and asked if she had any memories of me being emotionally unstable in the workplace. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't a joke. It was an actual email. From Alyssa's real account. She was actively trying to destroy my reputation. In writing. I contacted a lawyer. We drafted a formal cease and desist. I sent it to Alyssa directly, certified mail, signature required. She received it. I know because 3 hours after the delivery was confirmed, every single one of her social media accounts went dark. No posts. No stories. No tweets. Nothing. She disappeared. First I thought maybe it worked. Maybe she finally realized she couldn't keep pushing without consequences. But she didn't disappear. He just went underground. My dad called a few days later, furious. "Did you actually threaten her with a lawyer? Over some misunderstandings?" I asked if he wanted to see the screenshots. He said, "You're going too far. This is still your sister." I said, "She's not acting like one." He didn't like that. He started saying I was cold, vengeful, ungrateful for everything the family's done for me. I almost laughed. Ungrateful? For what? Decades of being the stable one while she blew through every lifeline. He hung up without another word. After that it got quiet again. But it didn't feel peaceful. It felt like a rope being stretched to its limit. I was still checking over my shoulder, locking accounts, watching for signs. And then something unexpected happened. Morgan called me in tears. Alyssa had called her, begging for a place to stay. She told Morgan she'd lost her housing situation, that our dad wasn't being supportive anymore, and that she just needed a week or two to get things in order. Morgan said no. That's when I knew Alyssa had hit a wall. She'd burned every bridge she had, even the quiet ones she assumed would always be there. My mom had locked her out. I'd cut her off. Now even Morgan, the peacemaker, the one person who never took sides, said no. She was officially out of places to land. The GoFundMe was how I found out she was homeless. Not a call, not a message, not even a second-hand update through our dad, just a link someone forwarded to me in a group chat with the message, "Is this real?" It was real. The page was titled, "Starting Over After Family Abuse." It had a photo of Alyssa looking gaunt and wide-eyed, like she'd taken it just after crying. Maybe she had. The description read like a drama script. She claimed she'd been kicked out with nothing, accused of unforgivable lies, and that she was surviving despite being betrayed by the people who were supposed to love her the most. And she listed me by name. Buried halfway through the paragraph, right between the sentence about being gaslit by her only sibling and rejected by a narcissistic mother, was, "Rachel refused to help. She watched me drown and walked away. She got donations. Not thousands but enough. Enough for food, motels, maybe a week of survival." The comments were full of strangers validating her version of events. "Stay strong, girl. Family can be so toxic. You deserve better." She replied to almost everyone. And kept posting. Thank you videos from different locations. A Starbucks bathroom. A city bus stop. A hallway with peeling paint. Each video came with another knife. Another little spin on her story to make herself the hero of it. I didn't say anything publicly. I didn't report the fundraiser. I didn't correct the lies. I just watched from a distance while the same girl who used to fake sick notes in high school ran the saddest con of her life. Then quietly she dropped offline again. A week passed. Then a call from an unknown number while I was on a Zoom meeting. I let it go to voicemail. Later I listened. It was a woman from a housing program, a caseworker. She said Alyssa listed me as her emergency contact. That she was trying to get placed in a job assistance program and needed someone to vouch for her. I didn't hesitate. I called back and said, "No, I won't be part of that. I'm not involved in her situation anymore." There was silence on the other end. Then the woman just said, "Understood," and hung up. For the first time I didn't feel bad. Not numb. Not conflicted. Just solid. Like I'd finally stopped letting her rewrite my life around hers. Then came the email from my dad. Subject line, "Family dinner, let's talk." Just those words. No body text. No explanation. Just an invitation to come over next Sunday and put things behind us. I almost deleted it, but my mom called that night and told me she was going too. "I don't want to," she said. "But if I don't go, he'll say I'm the one keeping the family divided." I agreed to come, but only to listen. I made that clear. Sunday night we showed up to our dad's house. Everything was staged. Candles lit. Wine poured. Table set like it was Thanksgiving. Alyssa was already there. She looked different. Not humble, not regretful, just tired. Her clothes were rumpled. Hair tied back with one of those emergency drugstore elastics. No makeup. No filters. Just the real her, and that alone made the room feel heavier. We sat. We ate. No one spoke. Then our dad launched into this rehearsed speech about unity, and forgiveness, and letting go of grudges. He kept looking at me like I was the one who needed convincing. Then Alyssa jumped in. She started with something almost resembling an apology. "I know I went too far. I was hurt," I lashed out. But it never landed. It felt like she was reading a script she didn't believe in. Then she said, "I've lost a lot. I'm asking for a little compassion." Not from him. From me. I looked at my mom. She just shook her head. Then I looked at Alyssa and said, "You don't want compassion. You want access." Silence. My dad tried to intervene, but I held up a hand. I told Alyssa I wasn't going to support her anymore. No money. No housing. No job references. I said if she wanted to rebuild, she'd have to do it without dragging me down with her. I told her I forgave her, but that didn't mean she got to come back. She didn't cry. She didn't fight. She just nodded once like she'd expected it. The night ended with my dad walking me out. He said, "You don't have to cut her off forever." I said, "You don't have to keep pretending she's still a child." He didn't answer. That was the last time I saw her. You want an ending? That's it. A dinner full of forced smiles and barely held in disappointment. A sister who finally ran out of people to blame. A family that tried too late to act like things weren't broken beyond repair. It took 4 months for her to come back around. No warning. No build-up. Just another email. this time from my dad again. Subject line, Sunday dinner, everyone's invited. No mention of Alyssa. But I knew. I debated deleting it. Then I got a message from my mom. He says she's turning things around. Just show up. You don't have to say anything. So I went. Not because I believed anything changed, but because I wanted to look her in the eye one last time and see what was really left. The house was quieter than usual. It felt like my dad was trying too hard. Everything perfectly in place, like he was expecting royalty instead of two daughters who barely looked at each other. Alyssa was already there, sitting at the table looking ordinary. Her hair was flat, her nails bare, and she wore a turtleneck that didn't match the weather. She didn't say anything when I walked in. Just gave a small nod like she didn't know how to speak to me anymore. Dinner started off civil. My dad did most of the talking about work, the neighbors, football. My mom barely spoke. She just picked at her food and kept her eyes on the middle of the table like she couldn't believe she was doing this again. Then halfway through the meal he brought it up. She's trying, he said. She's got a part-time job now. She's been staying clean. She's looking into certification programs. He looked at me. It hasn't been easy. You know that. I didn't say anything. That's when Alyssa finally spoke. I'm not asking for much, she said. I just need a little help. To stay on track. The room froze. She continued, said she needed someone to co-sign a lease on a small studio she found. Said her job didn't pay enough to get approved on her own. Said she wasn't asking for money, just a signature. I didn't even have to answer. My silence did it for me. But then my dad leaned in, elbows on the table, and said, just think about it. If you really want this family to heal, maybe this is the step. I looked at him, then at Alyssa. And then my mom, who still hadn't said a word, spoke up for the first time. She already gave more than anyone. You can't keep asking her to pay for the healing. Alyssa flinched. Not dramatically. Just enough that I saw it. My dad leaned back, frustrated. So we're just going to let her fail again? My mom snapped back. Maybe failing is the only way she learns. The rest of dinner was quiet. Afterward, as I grabbed my coat, Alyssa followed me to the door. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just looked at me and said, this time I really am trying. I said, then try without me. She nodded once like she already knew the answer. As I stepped outside, my dad called after me, she's still your sister. I didn't turn around. I just said, that's not always a good thing. And that was it. No explosion. No redemption arc. Just a broken pattern trying to repair itself without the tools. A family pretending to move forward while still dragging the same weight behind them. I haven't heard from Alyssa since. But I'm not watching the door anymore.